call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. If you could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For announcements, I just wanted to say that this is a study session. There are no public comments at study session meetings. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting on October 3rd, 2023, and/or contact the board via email at boe@shenschools.org with any questions or comments. All questions come into the Office of the Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and/or superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions or concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions or concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and/or designee. At this time, can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda? First is Tom, second is Deanna. All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. So we're going to move right into the superintendent's report. Dr. Robinson?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hoffman. First, I want to thank you and the board for your acknowledgement previously of Dr. Wood for tremendous service to the district. Certainly, this is her last board meeting here at Shen. However, I think she has on her social calendar to attend Shen board meetings on a regular basis, and also as a part of her operational role at BOCES to come and see a functional school board on a regular basis. She'll be attending Shen board meetings, so we appreciate the future of that. I'm sure she's not looking forward to missing those board meetings at night. On a related note, you'll see on the agenda, just bring this to the board's attention. The board will be asked later on to an appointment modification. We're pleased that tonight we'll be asking the board to modify the start date for Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner to start with us on October 1st. I think that's that Monday. And it's great because it's just a small bridge of time between the transition of Dr. Wood leaving this coming Friday and that first Monday in October. So we're pleased with that, and also pleased with the tremendous commitment from both parties, both Dr. Wood and Dr. Cecily Wilson-Turner, to really get together almost on a regular daily basis, almost seemingly, to allow for a seamless transition for their position as we move forward. So pretty excited about that. Related to that too, are the presentations tonight, because I call it tonight the plan night, right? These things speak to the gears of the system, all the different plans that drive the work of the system throughout the course of the year. So you'll hear various brief presentations, but I don't want the brevity of the presentation to be confused with the depth of the content of the plans. I think it's important. So you have the plans. The presenters are not going to go through in detail. If you have such an inclination, I would tell you to meet me on a Sunday in my backyard, and we can talk about all the plans you want to talk about. In your backyard, I'm sorry, did I say that? But on a very serious note, the notion was to try to provide a broad overview for the board. I think most of you have lived and seen some of these plans in effect as we move forward. And also for the public having appreciation that the things that we do as a system are not happenstance or by accident. Very strategic. We think about the things that we do. We try to execute the things that we do with fidelity. And when we make adjustments, we try to document those adjustments so that next time we can do it even better as we move forward. So these plans are evolving, not only from what's presenting you tonight, but when we start executing, we document things as things evolve over the course of the school year as well. So we're pretty excited about for you to hear those things as well. And just before we transition to Mr. Nardella for the first presentation, just to give you an example of one that's, it's not one of the plan, but example of some of the work. I appreciate Matt Davis for insisting. I think his text was like an insistent text. You should come to the restorative practices tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm there. And I say that because I wanted to go the day before, but circumstances didn't allow, and I went this morning. Probably 45, 50 mixed group of administrators, teachers, counselors, you name it. Thank you, Town of Half Moon, for allowing us to use their their boardroom for this training, for this offsite for the members. And I walked in and, you know, it's a restorative practice with people in this huge circle. And I think some people in this room know me. I'm not the sit around and tell me about yourself type of person. And so when I walked in, they were doing it, and I thought like, oh God, I thought I missed this part. And so they started, and they're passing the ball, and I'm like dreading for the ball to come to me for somebody to do. Can you tell us about an eventful moment in your life kind of situation? And it wasn't that, thankfully. However, the comments people reflected on the day before. And I sat there and seeing and hearing the various individuals. And while we all played different roles in the system, they all had a very similar impact in terms of the power of relationships, the power of building that what we talk about, a welcoming environment, so everything's forward facing, so we can understand and appreciate the best of each other. I'm sharing that with the board because we have plans that can, when you read them, can be academic, because they're written from that perspective. However, it's the execution of the plan that makes them authentic, because we're talking about people impacting the lives of other people. And so today was a perfect example of that. We can give you the write-up on restorative practices, but to see it and experience it is a whole different conversation. So I just want to use that as a punctuation point at the end of the story that you're going to hear tonight, that all these things end with those situations over and over and over again, where the work is impactful, where people are renewed or quite frankly, just some cases change forever in terms of how they look at their craft because of some of the things that these respective plans contain. So kudos to all the folks who are presenting tonight, recognizing that they're representing many people. And so we certainly, hopefully the board will listen with those ears and see that for what it is. It's how we impact change and create that environment where we can boldly say that we're committed to excellence as a school system, because we're constantly trying to get better at what we do. So with that being said, I'll just introduce the respective plans and we go into it. First one is our instructional technology person, unless Dr. Wood wanted to come and couch these things. You know what, no, this is her last, oh my God, absolutely have to allow her to do her last charge. So Dr. Wood, she's gonna model for Dr. Wilson Turner how this is done. So Dr. Wood, my apology.
No, I sat there and thought, wow, he's actually going to do all this, which is great. It really, you have pretty, I don't know if this, you've covered the most important parts, which is that there are a lot of people that go into all these plans. There's a tremendous amount of work that's happened really since we were here last year, a full year ago, operationalizing, gathering feedback, observing in practice, and figuring out the adjustments over a period of time. So with that, we will start with Ray Nardelli, our leading IMS, or Information Management Services, with an overview of the tech plan.
Like he just told me, I was only allowed to have one slide. I didn't know that. Anyway, so we'll try to go fast. But hi, everybody. So I'm joined tonight with a couple of colleagues, very important colleagues. We have David Hines, who's our Assistant Director. We have Mark Simpkins in the back. He's one of our systems analysts. We have Vanessa Kramer, and she's not part of IMS, but Vanessa, our lead teachers for technology are huge partners. So Vanessa and Amanda and Emily, thank you. I haven't talked to Emily yet, so I'm still getting to know.
Yeah. In this role.
In this role, thank you. Yeah, we had Gina Bolson was our other data person who left. But anyway, or she took a different job here.
Okay, Ray, thank you very much.
Why'd you give him one slide?
Okay, all right. So anyway, technology integration plan. So every year, obviously, we update this based on current Shen goals. based on current initiatives that we come up with through conversation, through many meetings throughout the year. And we base it on a framework, which is called a Future Ready framework, which kind of focuses on 8 different points. I'm not going to focus on all 8, but I'll go through a few. So curriculum instruction and assessment, obviously that's the center of everything we do. And when it comes to technology, we continue to grow in this area. Grow because of the comfort of teachers. We grow because of new tools that are out there, new software, new hardware, new possibilities. We grow because of our instructional technologists, frankly, because without them we can't really ask the teachers to do things unless they truly understand how to use the tools. That's just, there's always going to be curricular and instructional and assessment goals within our technology integration plan. The other one I want to touch on this slide is data and privacy. Big thing, we presented to the board, David and I, last year about cybersecurity. That continues to be forefront in our mind on a daily basis. In fact, Mark Simpkins was recently named systems analyst focusing on cybersecurity. As we hired a couple of new systems analysts, we kind of rearranged roles. This fall, we're going to be updating our incident response plan. So if we do have an incident that takes place, we're working with Becky and Julie in policy to make sure that we have a plan in place. And then we're going to be conducting some tabletop exercises before Christmas, one with the IMS department and one with a lot of administrators, HR, finance, back and ops, everybody's going to be involved so that if we do truly have a cyber incident, we all have a little practice as to how to deal with that. And then that will, every year, the thought is that we'll be doing tabletop exercises. If you want to go to the next slide. Couple things really quick here. I already mentioned it. The tech plan is created, and I feel like the entire IMS department, it's all about collaboration. I mean, everything we do, we're a support organization that is only as good as our end users have the ability to use the technology. So in being involved, for me, DLST and all the administrators' meetings that I go to, I'm listening constantly to the things that are needed. From board members down to students, it is all about collaboration and putting a plan like this together. Use of space and time really quickly. I mean, the idea that, Matt Davis, who's now famous for everything, but anyway, he's been championing the future ready furniture, and if you go into some of these classrooms, it's pretty cool because, there's a lot of different looks, and add to that the fact that students have their Chromebooks, they can sit anywhere, they can move anywhere they want, and we have these interactive panels that we're putting in lots of places on carts, so teachers have a lot of flexibility as to how their workspace or how their classroom looks. Budgeting and resources really quickly, I just want to mention, IMS, we have a pretty healthy budget. We manage over 20,000 devices. I think I said that last year. The one thing I want to thank the board, thank the administration, is that we got the support to hire a full-time inventory clerk, which is huge because the thousands of devices that come in and out of our door every day, and imagine, we have 10,000 Chromebooks assigned to kids. It's like we have to keep track of this stuff. Sometimes screens crack, and then we have to switch things out. So anyway, we have to keep track of all this stuff, and that having an inventory clerk is incredibly important to do that. You can go to the next slide. A couple of things so two of the silos within this plan are infrastructure, hardware, and professional development, and I'll just talk about a couple of these really quickly. Expansion of mobile panels. I mentioned these interactive panels. Well, over last April break, the IMS department deployed panels to every single high school classroom high school east and high school west. It was over 200 panels. And so now I would say probably 80% of them are on carts. So they're flexible, movable. All you got to do is plug them into power. They're wireless internet, so very flexible. And we did that with by leveraging federal funds. And included this summer, we had we installed 60 panels in the middle school complex and 30 in the elementary schools. So the middle schools are now about 50 or 80% panel and 20% interactive whiteboards, and those are the ones that need a projector. So the projector kind of shines behind the teacher. And our elementary schools are at about 50-50 right now. Panels, interactive whiteboards. Wireless network upgrades, this is like probably a 3-year process. Last year was year 1. We upgraded the wireless in high school east, high school west, Octave, Chango, and the district office. This year on the table is to update the entire middle school complex. We were hoping to do that this summer, but we did a lot this summer and we kind of ran out of time. So that'll be done before Christmas, right, David?
Guess so.
Anyway, secondary network. We had a secondary internet connection installed last spring. So before that we had one internet connection, and if that went down, anything that relied on internet was going to be just off limits for a bit. So now we have a second internet connection, which allows us to kind of, piggyback. So it's from a different vendor, and it comes on a different geographic pathway. So if someone hits a pole on 146 and knocks down some wires, maybe one of our internet connections might go down, but our other one will stay up. Also having that secondary network internet connection allows us to break apart our network operations center so we can have redundancy. So instead of having 2 firewalls in one network operations center, we can break them apart. And then if we have a fire or water damage or something in either place, we'll be able to continue to function. So that was huge. And well, that's the plan for this year. We're going to implement the second network center this year. Ed Law 2D compliance, if just to remind you, that's where we need to get a vendor to sign a data privacy agreement when our students' data is being shared with another company. Last January, we cut off access to hundreds of connections that were in the Google environment, extensions and apps and other things. And that's all because we didn't have data privacy agreements with those companies. The data security team meets monthly. Becky is the leader of that, and we monitor and go through, many apps every month are up for review to see if we can get a data privacy agreement signed. So we don't allow our students to use anything unless we have a data privacy agreement signed. Professional development, again, this is Vicky's world, but it's technology related. So we're going to be giving our first graders Chromebooks. So right now, or prior to this year, they had iPads. Kindergarten, first grade had iPads. So first grade is now going to have Chromebooks. So grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 have Chromebooks in the classroom. They don't leave the classroom. Grades 5 through 12, they go home with the kids at night. So like Amanda has been integral in helping those first grade teachers make that transition from iPads to Chromebooks. The computer science and digital fluency standards that were put up by State of New York. It's Amanda on the elementary side and Rose Barra, our academic administrator for technology and business. So right now, those standards are being folded into the curriculum. A lot of what's in the standards we're already covering in our curriculum. And Amanda showed me a document where she kind of painstakingly went through the whole thing and basically said, yeah, we're doing that, we're doing that, we're doing that, and that's all being shared with the teachers. So that's another part of the curriculum development that's happening in the upper grades is going to be implementing those standards. Artificial intelligence, it's hard to have a tech conversation without talking about that. Again, our lead teachers have held several sessions already on kind of, embracing artificial intelligence, helping teachers deal with it. I mean, it's out there, it needs to be dealt with. If you could possibly leverage it to, improve teaching and learning, then, that's what we should be doing. It's a moving target, obviously, because things change daily. But again, it's great to have the lead teachers kind of leading that conversation with the teachers, to be able to improve learning as we can. Last one, and I'm done. Digital assessment platforms. This is so powerful. When you think about, paper, pencil, test, quiz, whatever, a student takes that, hands it to the teacher, there's no transparency at all with something like that. You have digital assessments that, instantly provide, feedback to the teacher, feedback to the student, potentially feedback to the parent, to administrators. How is this class doing? How is this grade doing? Sarah Schneller is, working hard to kind of pull data from so many different places so that we can get a lot of real-time information where you could change instruction from one day to the next based on that information. So again, Vanessa has been a huge proponent of the digital assessment piece and kind of getting our teachers up to speed. Done. Good? Any questions? Thank you.
Nice job, David.
Thank you, Ray.
Oh.
All right, and next up, there were many references to professional learning in the technology integration plan. We have Vicki Wild, who is our Director of Professional Learning and who will introduce the coaches who are among us this evening as well.
Thank you all very much. Ray talked so much about professional learning and the coaching team. I don't know that I have too much more left to say, but thank you, Ray, for acknowledging them. Professional learning at Shen. While the Shen learning framework, which we bring up for you all the time, is always going to be our guide for how we're doing professional learning, our particular focus this year is on the student experience. Our goal is to make sure that we are supporting teachers and staff in making sure students experience safety and a sense of belonging in everything that they're doing at school. We want their learning environment to be academically rigorous and intellectually challenging, and to have opportunities to reflect on their learning experiences. So as we design and facilitate professional learning, we're grounding them in these goals for the student experience. On the next slide, we do have the names of our team. We're very fortunate to have a whole team dedicated to advancing this work. John Bullington couldn't be here with us this evening, and I intentionally left Gina's name on there in the data and instructional coach role because almost through the entire summer, so all the spring as we were working on this and through the summer, she was part of the team. We're lucky to still have her expertise here with us at Shen, but in a different role. So that role is currently vacant and we'll be looking to fill that soon. You've heard their names a little bit already, but please let me introduce Vanessa Kramer, who is our instructional coach for grades 6 through 12. Amanda Larkin, our K-5 instructional coach for technology integration, and Emily Patterson, who is our literacy coach for grades 3 through 5, specific to the implementation of Wit and Wisdom. And I cannot tell you how wonderful this team is, how much good work we have together, what a great rapport we have as a team, and it's really a blessing to work with them, and I thank them for coming out to be supportive this evening. On the next slide, just some highlights of the plan for this year. As always, we have our 4-year teacher induction program supporting new teachers to Shen. These are brand new teachers straight out of school and teachers who have experience but are new to Shenendehowa for the first time. We have a differentiated program for each of them, but then we put them together and we support them through their first 3 to 4 years of being at Shenendehowa. In this past year and in our current professional learning plan, we've actually expanded the team of teacher volunteers who help to plan and facilitate the sessions and provide guidance to our new instructional staff. In addition to the Shen Learning Framework, obviously, we're always thinking about our district goals, and we've been very deliberate as we plan in looking at the district goals to make sure that the offerings that we are putting out there for folks to participate in are meeting our district goals and helping our staff meet those goals. And then continuing to focus and build ways on including our support staff, not just for individualized trainings for them, because we want to provide that, we want to make sure they have what they need, but also making sure that when we have offerings that they can be included with instructional staff, even in so much as including them in Superintendent's Conference Day, all of us being together in the same space, that we are doing that. And so that is continuing work. We have a lot of support staff in the district with a lot of different roles and responsibilities. And so we want to make sure that we're finding ways to get them the trainings that they need to be the best that they can be at their jobs. And then finally, the very last piece is this year's plan contains a more robust list of CTLE options. And for those of you who may not know what that is, anybody in New York State who got their certification after 2016 has to collect continuing teacher leader education credits, whether they're a teacher or a related service provider or an administrator. If you got your certification after that date, you have to collect these credits, and it has to be 100 hours of these credits over the course of every 5-year period. And so we really wanted to make sure that it's important that everything that we're putting out there, we've vetted to get them these quality learning experiences so that they can stay up to date on their certification requirements. And so that was a big goal this year, and we're actually able to add a lot of trainings and things that we knew were going to happen anyway, but went through the steps to make sure that they could get those CTLE hours. So, any questions about the professional learning plan? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great, thank you so much, Vicki. I want to point out, in terms of all the presenters this evening, Ray, Vicki, Sarah, Matt, 4 out of the 5 have 2 years or fewer in our system, and yet you would never know it. So talk about coming in and hitting the ground running, really totally embracing all that there is to know and understand about Shen, and then being able to apply it and lead it. Very impressive. So thank you to Vicki, very successful first year as Director of Professional Learning. Joining me now, Michelle Mylod, an individual with some years, much like myself, actually even a few more years, as Director of Special Education, and she is joined this evening by a number of people who help her carry out and operationalize the special education plan, who you will introduce, right?
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, I'm so old that I was left off Dr. Wood's list, but I am too presenting tonight on special education. First, I would like to start by thanking my team, Tamara Thorpe Odom, who is the chairperson for preschool and our students out of district. Jill Barker is not here tonight. She had a family issue. She is also a new member of the team. Renee Young, who is returning from a little bit of a time in another district, is our elementary academic administrator, pardon my voice. Lisa Young is our middle school administrator, and Anna Contorsi is our high school administrator. And I could not do this work without having such a wonderful, caring, student-centered team. So thank you, and thank them for being here tonight. So our focus this year with special education is, as you can see, to look at our programming, as we have had a number of new entrants this year, especially at the kindergarten level, who have required a unique type of program. And these students, we know a little bit because they come up from preschool, but we don't know them very well, and we don't know how they will progress over those 3 years, or 2 years. So we have created 2 new classrooms called Kindergarten Development. We'll be looking to see the outcomes, especially for those students, because we have a very high number of kindergartners this year who require that level of programming. And we have also expanded our individual skills development program, which is our 613 class for students with more significant needs around the autism spectrum. So we are seeing those trends in special education, and we are going to be spending considerable time this year looking at our preschool students and planning as they enter next year. I would like to point out the importance of this slide in looking at least restrictive environment on the left, moving towards most restrictive environment. This is one of the more significant components of special education for students, that we always want to place them in the least restrictive environment, which means we want to ensure we can meet their needs, to ensure they have access to their education by being in an environment that is most mainstream and also with the least amount of support, because we work towards independence. We want to identify the needs students have, what the skills and strategies are that they need to be taught, and then work them out of requiring a high level of service, because once they exit, there are no more special education services. So this slide points out what we have at Shenendehowa: resource room and consultant teacher being the least restrictive services. We have co-teaching. We have special programs that are a hybrid of both some special class and some mainstreaming. That would be our kindergarten skills class, our transition class for students with autism on the milder end, and our behavior emotional skills program, which is our students with social emotional needs. Then we have our kindergarten development up at the top. That's our new program. It's kind of in between the more restrictive and the medium restrictive, because we are working on increasing inclusive opportunities for them throughout the year as we get to know them. And then we have functional skills, individual skills, which are students who are working on the skills and achievement credential. So they're not working on diploma, working on achieving a high school diploma, but rather a certificate of high school completion based on their individual needs. And then we have our MOVE program, which is a 12-to-1, 3-to-1, and I like to explain that because it's a little bit different. It's up to 12 students, 1 teacher, and then the 3-to-1 refers to the minimum ratio of adults to students. So we must have at least 1 adult, that can be an aide, a therapist, to 3 students. Any questions about the special education plan this year?
So wait, there's 1 teacher, and so for a class of 12, and so there's how many aides then? For every 3 students, there's 1?
So a minimum of 1 professional, so that could be an aide, could be a physical therapist, a speech therapist, an occupational therapist. We have 7 students in our younger class with 5 aides, and we have 5 or 6 students in our older class with 5 aides. And then PT, OT, and speech push in and work with not only the students, but the adults, which is just as critically important, so that they know how to work towards facilitating that independence for those students. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much to Michelle. I have to say, special education is highly regulated and complex, and I've never met somebody who more consistently can explain something in a way that I can understand and then communicate to others. And so I thank Michelle for consistently being that person here in Shenendehowa to understand the rules inside and out and help others come along with it as well. Okay, so Sarah Schneller is up next, giving an overview of our multi-tiered systems of support, affectionately known as MTSS plan.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So multi-tier systems of support, or MTSS, as you will hear often referred to, is our framework for ensuring that we are systematically allowing for service to follow need. It is a plan that promotes all students reaching their full potential, and it outlines the ways in which we monitor progress and achievement, how we regularly review that. And so you see on the bottom left-hand corner here an image that should be sort of familiar. We talked about this when I last presented to you guys about how we turn data into information, right? And that's so much of what this is about. We have a lot of data on students, and we need to make it actionable. And so our plan, again, outlines how we go about ensuring that all of that student progress and achievement is regularly reviewed. And so again, the image there is the times and places and groups throughout the year that we are doing that work, all to get down to that very strategic target of what does a student need and how do we ensure that we are allowing for that to happen. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see the data analysis, right? So that's, again, how we are reviewing that. If you think about the large circles on the left, the data analysis process kind of fits within each of those larger circles, right? We are systematically using that information to identify, address, and then monitor all of the components of student achievement. So that then kind of brings us to the image on the top right here, all of which come right from our plan. So if you've read through it, again, these will be familiar, and you'll see all the language that goes with this too. We start by screening. Last year, we brought in STAR as a universal screener. We screen kids 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. Plan outlines what we do with that information. We look at different buckets. We then say, okay, these students might need a little bit more. We need to learn more, right? And so then we fall into that diagnostic area there with the green triangle. From there, we get to work. We say, we know that kids have needs. We've now identified what those needs are. And then we're looking to jump to that next box there, which is hard to read, but says intervention and instruction, right? And so that's, again, that's where the action-oriented piece of this comes into play. But we don't stop there, right? It's not enough to know that we're addressing those needs. We need to know that what we're doing is actually working. And so that's where we get to that final column there around progress monitoring. So our plan this year, we were very intentional when we started last year to collect and gather feedback as we went through from every group. At every point, really, we were seeking feedback. We were tracking that feedback. And then as we got closer to the end of the year, and certainly throughout the summer, we were working to make those refinements. Most of the refinements you'll see in the plan this year, they fit really into that diagnostic testing area and move us forward into the rest of it. So we've added some diagnostic testing. We have STAR phonics that we're utilizing this year. We have curriculum-based measures, another sort of assessment that comes from STAR Renaissance. And all of these things, again, help us to monitor the progress that students are making along the way. As we go forward, we are continuing to pay close attention to how we're doing that work in terms of how are we setting instructional targets? What does it mean to be goal setting for students? How are student voices involved in that? How do we grow that work as we go? And then also thinking how are we tracking that? So we are also piloting a data platform this year, allowing for the plan as it's outlined to actually come to life, right? We said we need to do this work. We said we need to have goals, and now we have a platform and a place in which to do that. We have a system in there that will help us see visually through graphs, the progress that kids are making, right? So all of these, again, small refinements or additions are helping us to bring the plan to life and ensure that those students at the center are getting all of their needs met. Questions?
Want to show you a video?
So you'll see linked here, we're not gonna watch this whole thing. But, you know, we felt like it was really important with some of these refinements to be, to have a consistent message with them. And so I did put together a video that was shared out with staff so that they can understand the changes that were made.
Welcome back, Shenendehowa community. I'm Sarah Schneller, Director of Student Learning and Data Accountability. The following video is meant to serve as an overview of our MTSS plan for the 23-24 school year. As most of you are likely aware, MTSS stands for Multi-Tier Systems of Support. Last year, as we implemented our MTSS plan for the first time, we worked diligently to listen, learn, and note needed refinements for the future. As the Director of Student Learning and Data Accountability, co-facilitating this work with Michelle Milat, our Director of Special Education, we are very excited to share the ways in which feedback has been used to refine our 23-24 MTSS plan for greater specificity and clarity. Most importantly, however, our 23-24 MTSS plan will ensure student needs are identified and met.
So really the rest of the video just goes through much of what I just shared with you here. I'll allow you to watch it at your leisure.
So, Sarah, can you just mention again why you did the video and how it was used? I'm sorry, Patrick, you had a question before?
No, it's fine, go ahead.
We just felt like there was so much conversation around this plan, there was so much feedback that was gathered, and then refinements made that we wanted to ensure that, number one, people knew they were heard, and number two, people understood what the plan looks like now and could really hit the ground running when students were in front of them. That was, I think, really the impetus behind this. It was like, there's so much good stuff here. We want to ensure that everyone is able to really unpack it in a way that they can, again, just get started using it.
Thank you for that, it's awesome. I guess my question maybe piggybacks onto that. So you say you're, a third grade kid last year and you've taken 3 stars. When you walk into the 4th grade classroom, does that teacher already have information about where you were, where you're going, that sort of thing, and then can move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
All of that information is shared, and that's part of, that's really part of that image there, right? That it is just, it's always trickling down to where it needs to get. And we're not letting chance take over and say, well, if you saw it, you saw it, right? That we have systems for review of that. So in grade level teams, certainly as an individual classroom teacher, they're utilizing that information, they're looking at what that is. And I'll tell you, they're asking for more all the time, so, which is great, right? They want it, they know the value of it, and so yes, they're absolutely utilizing it to plan forward.
That's great, thank you.
So I'll just add, and tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but I don't think I am, but what's really cool about that is the district now is having a view on students for their whole career, not just year by year, and then do the teachers talk to each other. So that's a big leap, and I think that's really exciting, so. Yeah,
it's given us, a universal view, nationally normed assessment of how our kids are doing, and it's also given us a lot of different ways to look at that, and growth being just one piece of that, right? We can now look at growth over time, and we can see not just how a kid's growing within 1 year, but yes, how are they growing over their years with us, and how did they grow from last year till they came back, right? We want to ensure that summer slide is not happening, and now we have kind of a system for review of that.
And unlike the state assessments, you can't opt out of it. Right?
Correct.
Like the New York State assessments, you warn kids weeks in advance and then they get sick or the parents decide not to send them in. But this, you're not gonna warning, it just happens in class and it's just part of the routine. And so basically every child.
Just like our common assessments and any other, assessment that's built into our plan for, you think about our wheel of, our framework, right? This is the how well are we doing? And this is how we know.
Thank you. It's incredibly impactful work, led by Sarah and a very large team behind her, including, as she mentioned, Michelle Mylod, and Dr. Mitlak is with us this evening as well, who was really instrumental in the original drafting of the plan, and all of our academic administrators who continue to really work on carrying out the plan throughout the year. And then our final presentation this evening is from Matt Davis, focused on our counseling plan and counseling advisory committee.
All right, good evening, everyone. So tonight's presentation is going to be a very broad overview of the K-12 counseling plan as well as the work of the Counseling Advisory Committee. So first, I think it's important to just frame the counseling plan. It follows the ASCA national model, and because of that, it again provides that broad overview and enables us to really focus on promoting academic, social, emotional, and mental health, as well as those college and career aspects of school counseling. So school counselors' time is really broken up into direct services to students, whether that's social emotional support or college and career advising, scheduling advising, and then those indirect supports for students. That would be things like lesson planning, because counselors, even at the high school, go into classrooms multiple times a year and teach lessons to students. And then there's a component of a counselor's job that is paperwork heavy. Making sure that the schedules are done correctly, correcting errors, doing things of that nature. So the counseling plan lays all of that out, and it helps us foster an environment where students, again, are at the center. The counseling plan is the embodiment of the Shen learning framework with the students at the center, and it drives the work of our counselors, K-12, as well as our student support counselors throughout the district. So the counseling plan also authorizes, it establishes the bylaws and the purpose and the membership of the Counseling Advisory Committee. I know two of you sit on the Counseling Advisory Committee and are integral to the work that we do there. So you may notice that the goal for this year is the same goal as we had last year, because we know that the work for this goal is not yet complete. We had a great start last year in addressing this goal, but we felt that when looking at the work that we had done, that there's still more to do and that we're actively involved in. So our goal again will be to use data to improve academic, behavioral, and social emotional outcomes for all students, but specifically those transfer students to the district, and using data to analyze and ensure that we have strong student engagement. So the Counseling Advisory Committee last year put together several different events and initiatives to address this goal. So we had a community circle over at the library with new families to the district, which was really rooted in the principles of restorative practices that Dr. Robinson was sharing about earlier. And this year we're going to continue that work and host a New to Shen fair. So we'll be talking more about that, and that'll be coming up in October, and we'll share all about that with the board as those details get solidified. But the goal there again is to really promote access to engaging activities to students who are new to the district. We want to engage students and families right away, and we know that students are more academically successful if they're engaged in extracurricular activities, athletics, fine arts, all of those things that make kids well-rounded. Beyond that, the Counseling Advisory Committee is going to continue to look at some tweaks to our registration and enrollment process to ensure that we're providing families with as much information as possible, and they're providing us with as much information as possible to assist students. Along with that, at the high school, we're continuing to make changes to the new Student Ambassador Program to ensure that students are paired with someone who has similar interests and goals as them to really invite them into the building. And lastly, we're continuing our focus on tracking student engagement data. So in collaboration with Sarah Schneller's office, we're looking at who's involved in sports, who's involved in clubs, and who's not. And if they're not, why not? And for every student, that's not necessarily a bad thing. They may be involved in a lot of things outside of school, but we want our counselors to intervene in a good way to provide support for students who may need that assistance with becoming engaged. So finally, I just want to say that in the year that I've been here, I've been so impressed and proud of Shen counselors. We have over 40 phenomenal counselors here at Shenendehowa who are doing amazing work every day with students, whether that's running a restorative circle or intervening in a student's mental health crisis, or just this week seeking housing support for a student who had recently become homeless. Our counselors really do step into the gap for students every single day. And they're working within our counseling plan, but also just working on student needs and meeting those needs consistently and providing for our students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just find it so interesting, you said in 1 year, how much, well, look how far you come in 1 year, Max, so kudos to you. And all the work that you do with the professional and the team around you, so.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
So before we transition, Mrs. Hoffman, just again, I want to pause and almost piggyback on the same sentiment Mrs. Stevenson just offered, and also what Dr. Wood pointed out. You know, I jokingly say that there's no honeymoon, right? And it's not necessarily saying that people are thrown into the fire. The reality of it is the work just continues. And so when we bring people on board, to look to support them to success, recognizing that they're growing, and as they grow, they influence the work that they're doing as well, because we hire people for potential. What they will do is the biggest piece, right? What are you going into is the biggest piece for us as a system. And so tonight, I think the board not only saw and heard about some great plans to drive our work, but also I think you see some folks that symbolize the many individuals, regardless of title, that what I'm fond of saying, that we're all leaders for learning, right? Everyone is influencing the experience that kids have. And so your support as a board is, I think, more significant than you probably even realize. And let me put that in context. I was just talking to a colleague just this afternoon because he's trying to convince his board to do something that I think fundamentally is kind of like, huh? Why is that even a question? But yet, it's fundamentally a big source of contention. And I sat back because my first inclination was like, why would I use a choice word, bring that to the board in the first place? Because things that we do here, and I think about how different environments are in terms of this board probably be mad if we weren't doing it. And I pause because I think sometimes, myself included, we can easily take for granted that we are working and a part of an organization that expect that we're going to try to push down ropes on things. They expect that we're not going to be satisfied with just being satisfactory. That they expect that we also will make mistakes and those become our greatest learning experiences. And so I really want to pause and say that because these are the things that happen every day. And yes, we're not perfect, but I'm going to tell you, we're always going to strive to be better tomorrow than we were yesterday. So I really appreciate the board support because it's not as common as you think it is. And I never want you to think that we take that for granted, and we really do allow us to do the jobs that we were hired to do, which I think is an integral part of any system. Trust the people you hire to do the job, and they'll deliver. And I think tonight you see the plans are indication of people have the blueprint to deliver. And so I really appreciate that very much. So thank you all. And next board meeting, we'll be asking the board to approve these plans. I deliberately have the stagger in between, just to make sure that people digest the meal, right, before we move away from the table. And so we're excited about it. All this work is happening. And so your support from your approval next board meeting, again, will be that punctuation point at the end of the sentence in terms of we're all committed to excellence. So appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. I can't say enough for these presentations. It is a rare opportunity. I know that a lot of work went into everyone preparing so that you keep this in less than an hour. I mean, that was less than an hour. That's really impressive. But it is rare. It's to have one presentation where we have a nice overview, we can go back to better understand something, we have the information there. We don't take that for granted. We do very much appreciate it. I think I can say that on behalf of this board. And so thank you. And like Dr. Robinson said, if everyone didn't have a chance to read or to go through all the presentations and you did have questions, I think you have a month, not a month, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, yes. But I mean, having said that, again, this is very, for the most part, high level. I know the plans are a little bit more in depth, but please ask your questions. It's best to understand what these programs are about. I do get questioned, periodically, and like I said, this is a good place to go to get that information, to get a nice broad understanding as to what's behind the scenes and what's going on behind the scenes. And the other thing too is, hearing what many of you presented last year, and then hearing, how much further you're taking it this year. That's it's appreciated and it's very helpful. So thank you. So with that, are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to? We'll move on to our one action item and invite Jenny up for that.
Okay. Good evening. So as Dr. Robinson mentioned, we have one modification of appointment for Dr. Wilson Turner, and this is for a start date of 10/1/23.
Thank you. Jason?
Move.
Okay, can I have a motion? Jason's first, Thomas second. Any comments? I'll just say, I'm so excited here that you're becoming 3 weeks earlier, and for the whole district, I'm sure that's very much appreciated. And with that, all in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. For the next item up, we're on to for the good of the order, and that's where the board members have an opportunity to make a shout out or to talk about something specific in the district. Does anybody have something they'd like to share? Yes, Tom.
So I don't want to take too much time, but I wanted to express my deep gratitude and admiration for the Capital Region schools that have welcomed half of upstate New York's migrant student population, particularly North Colony and Mohanson. And although Shenendehowa isn't directly accommodating migrant students in our classrooms, we have sent teachers to those districts to assist in translation and evaluation efforts. Anytime people are challenged to walk the walk, there is an opportunity to demonstrate values in action. Not everyone embraces these opportunities. In fact, some do their best to avoid them. Many thanks to our Capital Region schools for leaping at them, seeking them for the sake of what's right, for recognizing that public education isn't a privilege for the few, but a right for all. And as always, for putting children first, no matter where they come from. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, with that, the next item on the agenda is policy review and the presentation schedule. And with that, can I ask for a motion to adjourn? Deanna's first, Tom is second, all in favor? It is unanimous, the meeting's